The Avalon was an interstellar spacecraft carrying 5,000 passengers and 258 crew members on a journey to the colonized planet Homestead 2. The ship was operating in autopilot mode, with all passengers and crew in hibernation. However, during the voyage, it encountered an asteroid belt. This collision weakened the ship's shields, forcing power to be redirected to the main shields. Subsequently, a collision with a large asteroid caused various malfunctions aboard the ship. The ship's self-repair system activated, but one of the hibernation pods unexpectedly malfunctioned, waking a mechanical engineer named Jim Preston. Jim had been in deep sleep for 120 years. When Jim woke up, he discovered that the ship had 4 months to reach Homestead 2. He was provided with an ID bracelet, cabin information, and instructions about the activities he could participate in during the journey. Initially, Jim felt a mix of excitement and nervousness at the thought of meeting others aboard the ship. He left his cabin and entered an automated classroom designed for group learning. A hologram was giving a lecture about the state of Earth, explaining how it had become overpopulated, expensive, and uninhabitable. However, Jim couldn't resist interrupting the hologram to ask why he was alone. Unable to answer his question, the hologram continued its lesson, prompting Jim to leave the classroom. Hoping to find other people on the ship, Jim went to the main concourse but realized no one was there. He approached an automated information desk and requested to speak with a real person. While the desk directed him to talk to an attendant, Jim was unable to find anyone. He then asked to meet with the captain but learned he didn't have access to the captain's quarters. Peeking into the bridge, Jim noticed that the main crew members were also still in hibernation. After wandering the ship for a while, Jim arrived at the observatory and came face to face with the reality of his situation. The ship was still 90 years away from reaching Homestead 2, meaning the information he had been given was incorrect. He realized he had been woken up far too early by mistake. Desperate, Jim returned to the main concourse and sent a message to Earth, asking if there was any way to return to hibernation. However, he was informed that receiving a reply to the costly message would take 55 years. This news deeply shook Jim. Disheartened, Jim continued to wander the ship aimlessly until he came across a bar. There, he thought he saw another person and started a conversation. However, he quickly realized something was off. The person he was speaking to was actually an android named Arthur. While Jim wanted to extract more information from Arthur, the android was unable to provide a clear answer as to why Jim had woken up early. The following morning, Jim visited the cantina and discovered that many items on the menu were only available to gold-class passengers. After settling for a simple cup of coffee, he focused on trying to repair his hibernation pod. He gathered the necessary tools and attempted to fix it, but was unsuccessful. Next, he tried to access the crew's hibernation chambers using the tools he had found, but this effort also failed. As minor issues arose on the ship, Jim found himself frequently returning to the bar to talk with Arthur. Arthur offered him advice, which led Jim to break into one of the gold-class rooms and enjoy the ship's luxurious amenities. He explored the restaurants, games, and entertainment systems, but as time went on, the loneliness of being alone on the ship weighed heavily on him. While roaming among the hibernation pods, Jim came across a woman named Aurora and became captivated by her. He searched for her files in the system and listened to her pre-journey interviews. Aurora's story and personality charmed Jim. He found the situation ironic. He had embarked on a journey to another planet for a better life, been woken up prematurely, met his ideal woman, but was unable to reach her. Wrestling with this ethical dilemma, Jim discussed the possibility of waking Aurora with Arthur, but the android failed to grasp the moral implications of the situation. Jim knew that waking Aurora would condemn her to the same fate as him, being trapped on the ship for the rest of her life. At first, he decided not to do it. However, the thought of waking Aurora lingered in his mind. Eventually, Jim hacked Aurora's pod settings, causing it to malfunction and wake her up. When Aurora woke, Jim lied to her, claiming that her pod had failed on its own. Together, they tried to repair the pod, but they were unsuccessful. Jim decided to show Aurora around the ship and keep her entertained. He took her on a spacewalk, and they began spending time together. Jim spent most of his time showing Aurora the luxurious amenities on the ship and sharing moments with her. The two fell in love. Jim, in an effort to give Aurora a taste of the ideal life she had envisioned on Homestead 2, accessed the ship's systems and created a virtual world. In this world, he designed a beach and a dance floor. Aurora was delighted by the surprise, and the two spent hours in the virtual paradise dancing, watching movies, playing basketball, and chatting with Arthur at the bar. While their bond deepened, Aurora still felt trapped and powerless, acutely aware of their uncertain situation. As their relationship grew, they shared many intimate moments, such as running together, sharing meals, and sleeping side by side. Jim discovered the ship's hydroponic garden and surprised Aurora with a bouquet of flowers. For Aurora's birthday, they celebrated at one of the ship's restaurants, and Jim planned to propose to her with a ring he had designed. However, Aurora learned the truth about why she had woken up, leading to a wave of anger and heartbreak that caused her to leave Jim. She felt betrayed and thought her life had been stolen from her. She lost trust in Jim, and despite his apologies and declarations of love, Aurora couldn't forgive him. She began avoiding him. One night, Aurora vented her anger by storming into Jim's cabin, hitting and kicking him. After Aurora left, Jim was consumed with regret and tried desperately to win her back. One night, a major malfunction occurred on the ship, disabling the main command system. In their search for solutions, Jim and Aurora came across the tree Jim had planted earlier in the ship's main concourse. Despite their unresolved differences, they marveled together at how life had flourished aboard the ship. To repair the ship, Aurora and Jim worked as a team to locate and seal hull breaches. While tracking the damage caused by asteroids, they discovered that a collision had damaged the reactor control computer. Jim theorized that they could replace the damaged components with spare parts from another part of the ship. They successfully found and replaced the necessary parts, but they encountered difficulties when attempting to open the ventilation door to cool the reactor. Jim realized that in order to get the ventilation system working properly, he would need to manually open the vent from outside the ship. Before embarking on this dangerous task, he entrusted Mancuso's ID bracelet to Aurora. Standing in the airlock just before stepping outside, Aurora begged him to come back, expressing that she couldn't bear the thought of being left alone on the ship. As Aurora stayed in the reactor room, the temperature reached critical levels. Jim managed to reach the vent, but was exposed to toxic gases. The fumes caused him to lose balance, snap his tether, and suffer rapid loss of pressure in his suit. When Aurora realized Jim's perilous condition, she acted quickly. Rushing to find another spacesuit, she tethered herself and left the ship to rescue him. Despite her limited reach, Aurora managed to grab Jim and pull him back to the ship. She immediately transported him to the medical pod and used Mancuso's bracelet to override the medical protocols, reviving Jim in a miraculous turn of events. The scene transitions from high tension to relief as Jim regains consciousness. Aurora's tears of joy and her forgiveness for Jim's past actions marked a turning point in their relationship. After his recovery, Jim revealed that he had found a way to modify the medical pod into a makeshift hibernation chamber. He told Aurora that she could use it to sleep through the remainder of the journey. However, Aurora made a heartfelt choice. She decided to stay awake with Jim. In an emotional moment, Jim proposed to her, and Aurora accepted. They vowed to make the most of their time together on the ship. In a beautifully tender montage, we see the couple embracing life aboard Avalon, planting trees, tending to the hydroponic garden, and sharing countless joyful moments. Their love blossomed despite the extraordinary circumstances. As the Avalon approached Homestead 2 after 88 years, the crew and passengers were awakened from hibernation. They were shocked to find the ship transformed into a living, thriving environment, complete with trees, flowers, and the legacy of a couple who refused to let isolation defeat them. Aurora left a recorded message for the arriving passengers and crew. In it, she recounted the extraordinary life she and Jim had shared aboard Avalon, their struggles, sacrifices, and the love they found in an impossible situation. Her message became an enduring story of resilience, hope, and human connection.